The topic that we are going to discuss this morning, it's all about physical self. Okay? I will not be talking about the objectives of this lesson because it's already there in the iLearn. You just read the objectives there. Now, the greatest organ of the body is, we call it integumentary system, or the skin. And many people are, deprived of the therapeutic touch because many people in contemporary times, instead that they have that therapeutic touch, they can receive therapeutic touch from their parents or significant others. What they usually receive is the toxic touch by way of spanking, by way of, hurting, by way of spanking, hitting, and other, unwanted kind of touch. And may I know among you here, who was not able to experience being spanked or being pinched by somebody or your parents or significant others? Is there anyone? So is everyone experience being spanked, being pinched, or being boxed by someone? Is there anyone?
Yes, sir.
Okay. In other words, instead of having the therapeutic touch, we receive toxic touch. Now, to touch, it's way of, if we receive so much therapeutic touch, then it can contribute to the development of our self-esteem. But let's try to consider first the physical self as outlined in our lesson. You can go through and you can read along with me. If you have your computer and it's already downloaded the PowerPoints, it says here, physical self generally refers to the natural, material aspect of the entire person, in contrast to things not readily visible, such as mental, emotional, spiritual, and other dimensions. In other words, it denotes what is perceivable, tangible, and concrete. So physical self is our body. It is can be touched, touchable, okay? Physical self is what we are now, in contrast to the emotional self, which we could not touch, we could not see, but we can feel it, our emotion. Okay. Now, how do you see yourself? There is an activity there in the iLearn that you need to answer. But let's focus on the physical self in the time where you were still in the early adolescence. Okay? When I say early adolescence, it's ages between 10 to 13. Okay, that is early adolescence. Take note of that. And middle adolescence, ages between 14 to 17. And late adolescence, ages between 18 to 21 and beyond. In this age, it is late adolescence, the person or the individual is already reached its maturity, because physical, or shall we say physical and mental emotional maturity, usually for ladies, at the age of 18, it's already mature. It is considered that a lady is already mature at the age of 18, physically, mentally, and emotionally, of which is also the legal age for a lady to marry. On the other hand, gentlemen, late. The development is quite late because the full development of gentlemen in their physical, mental, and emotional will be at the age 21, which is considered by the legal court in the Philippines as legal age. So at the age of 21, a boy or a gentleman is allowed to marry under the law. Therefore, the implication is very simple. In my study, I found out that those who are contemplating for marriage, I hope that you are not contemplating to get married at this time, but it's part of your plan. Okay? Now, let's try to consider the implication here, because ladies matured physically, mentally, and emotionally first, then gentlemen. So in my research, I found out that ladies, if you want to get married, see to it that the gentleman or your husband to be should be an advisable, and I am recommending it, that he is older than you by 4 to 8 years. 4 to 8 years gap, of which men is older than women, is advisable because ladies are emotionally and mentally mature than men, and to compensate, to balance your mental capabilities and abilities to decide, it should be that men should be older than women, so that in the decision-making process, he can cope up with the level of perceptivity and understanding when it comes to decision-making. That is based on my study, because they base it on their general observation, but it's not a mandatory, because age actually is not a guarantee when you are older that you are mature, but in decision making, it is advisable that men should be older than women. Any reaction on that? Okay, any reaction? If there is no reaction, then I will proceed. Now, let's try to remember that adolescence is the period that lies psychologically and culturally between childhood and adulthood. So during the early adolescence, it's actually a transition period, because you are leaving your childhood and you are entering into an adulthood. And in the early adolescent stage, there is problem occurring in this stage. There is that what we call power struggle between the children and the parents, because you wanted to have that independence. I am right? Is my observation correct? That somehow at this stage, children 10 to 13, they are somewhat rebellious because they wanted adolescence. Now let's discuss what are the dynamics happening in the early adolescence. In early adolescence, 10 to 13, you can notice that a person or a lady or a boy grows more quickly. There is that, bodily changes. There is a hair growth in the armpit of both men and women and the near genitals. And there is that, development of the breast in female, and there is the development of testicles for men. So there is that, quick development of the physical body of a person. And, ladies usually start a year or two earlier than gentlemen when it comes to the development of their breasts. They can feel it. They can notice it, that there is that breast enlargement 2 to 2 years before they enter into the adolescent stage. Okay, and sometimes at the age of 8 for girls and 9 in men, they have that experience that development, and sometimes and generally at the age of 12, women you know or ladies started to have first monthly period. Okay, but the enlargement and the development of the breast and testicles, okay, for men, and breast for ladies started 2 to 3 years before these things happen. All right, so they suffer, at this stage, in early adolescence, they suffered from egocentrism, very conscious about their appearance, because at this time, you actually feel something unusual in your feelings, especially ladies, when you see your dream boy. And also, gentlemen, if it's your crush, then you feel something different, unusual, a sense of excitement if you see your crush, because it's the time that you are developing that what we call romantic love. But in general, at this stage, young people or adolescents are suffering from what we call egocentrism, because you wanted to have that independence, and here comes a limitation or policy or rules implemented by your parents, and you don't have to be controlled by your parents, and you wanted to be independent. So there is that what we call power struggle. And your physical self is very important at this time. You are not comfortable to see your crush with pimples. And at this time, ladies and also gentlemen are so particular the way they dress, the way how they looks, and they feel that they will be outcast from the society if there is no sense of belongingness in the group. So you don't want to be judged by peers. That's why you also try to emulate or to follow the lifestyle of your barkada, so that you will not be out of date. In other words, your way of life is greatly influenced by your peers. So that's why at this stage, if you will become parents, you should always be particular on the kind of friends your children will have, because friends at this stage are very influential to that person. So at this stage also, or before preteen, there is that need for personal privacy. And that's why with my two kids, my two daughters, when we put them in one room, one of the ladies, one of the girls said, "Okay, I want to have my own bedroom." So because that's why they wanted to have that personal privacy, right? Now, there is a strong reaction against the parents or guardians if there is that reinforcement of limits. As what I've said a while ago, you wanted adolescents at this stage, they wanted to have freedom. Now, middle adolescence between 14 and 17, and I believe most of you belong to this category. You are in a middle adolescent, because I believe most of you here are 17 years old. I am right? Am I right?
Yes.
Okay, so you belong to
Yes,
the
sir.
middle adolescence. Now, what are the things happening during middle adolescence so that you can understand your physical self, what is going on in your physical self? So, as what I've said, 14 to 17 years old, the physical change, growth spark quickly. In other words, your growth is very quick. At this stage, between 14 to 17, there is that hoarseness of your voice, for men especially, change po yung boses. Okay? Sometimes when you sing, it's too low. And at this stage, you are, interested of what we call romantic relationships. And there is that what we call kilig factor. Right? So at this stage, as what I've said, at the age of 10, you are so particular of your, at the age of 10 to 13, you are particular the way you look. And this is much more when the age of 14 to 17 that you begin to feel that, romantic relationship, that the click factor. And at this time when somebody texted you or chatted you, then if you know that the one is chatting you or texted you is your crush, sometimes you keep on reading that sweet notes coming from your crush. I am right. And sometimes you cannot sleep. Renalyn,
Yes.
is it true? All right?
Yes.
Yeah, that is actually part of your growth. It's natural. It's very natural. When you feel something and you are into a romantic relationship, it shows that you are a normal person because that is part of your growth. But engaging in a romantic relationship, there should be a limit that we need to observe so that you will not go beyond the boundary. So there should be a limit. So there is that, more struggles between parents and children for independence, and you tend to develop a risky behavior because um, your frontal lobe, which is responsible for your decision making, is not yet properly developed. That's why when there is that guidance from your parents, you should always consider the advice and the counsel of your parents, because your decision making part of the brain is not fully mature, and you usually make decisions based on emotion. And always remember that emotion is sometimes very, very deceptive. All right? So appearance, you are very conscious. That's why at this stage, ladies spend lots of money in papaya, pino, to make to make you appear beautiful. Yes, Miss Norley.
Bakal pagin sila sir perfect skin para nga magkinis sila tsura. Kay
Yeah. So in our time, my classmates bought, when I was in high school, papaya soap, pipino soap, ano pa iban? May gabi soap man?
Conjecture.
Oh, I'm not so particular because you want at this stage, ladies especially, you wanted to have a good look, and also gentlemen, whatever the passion, you should always cope up with the passion. Okay, so if the passion now is torn clothes, torn pants, so you buy also torn clothes so that you will not be outdated. You are in the trend. So those are the things that happening in the middle adolescence. Okay, because at that stage, the frontal lobe, which is responsible for your decision-making process, is not fully mature or developed. Because according to research, the maturity of the frontal lobe will happen at the age of 18 for women, and at the age of 21 for gentlemen. Okay, late adolescence, 18 to 21, and I believe some of you are already in the late adolescence, that is ages 18 to 21 and beyond. So you are already in the full growth period. So you're gonna have to control your impulse, and you have now the sense of identity. So those are the things that happening during the adolescent stage. And as you can see in the slide, ladies want to have a perfect body. So if somebody is chubby, and they wanted to have that perfect body because we envision, and our basis for a perfect body is grounded on what we have seen in the television, in the YouTube, in the Netflix, because we tend to idolize people in the entertainment world, and so you can see sexy body. So you are somewhat frustrated when you are chubby, because your understanding of a perfect body does not conform, or your body does not conform to your ideal, so that we discussed last week, the ideal self. Now, we see this unobtainable perfect bodies, and that is what we are comparing ourselves to. So if your mental image of a beautiful lady is sexy, ano na ang yung, what is the body measurement? 24? Ano na siya? I'm not so particular. 24?
36,
Ano?
26, right?
26, 24, dayon?
36 or 32. What? 36, 24, line na.
26, 24, no more?
30, sir. 30 plus.
30 plus, 36, 26, 24, no more. Amo na. So, you know, most ladies wanted to have Coca-Cola body, right? Who don't like to have that Coca-Cola body? But sometimes, there are two kinds of Coca-Cola body. One Coca-Cola body in bottle, and one Coca-Cola body in can. Which do you belong?
Cancer.
Sa can. Sana all.
Cancer.
Coca-Cola body.
Kan ng nanay, sir. Quarantine, puro kaon, sir.
Okay, bilang lister. Yes, April. So that's it. So we tend to idolize those people in the entertainment world, and if our body does not conform to what we have seen, because that is our model picture of a physical self, we are frustrated. If our skin is not fair, if our skin, our faces have lots of pimple, we are shy to approach other people because we are not that beautiful as we expect. And also for gentlemen, we try also to be up to date of the latest fashion. So we also try to use Gatsby, we try to use the latest perfume, Axe, anything that it helps us to look good and smell good. Okay? And because at this time, because of the changes of the growth in the body, there are that, hormonal imbalances sometimes that, it resulted to body odor. So may mga putok. So that's why hygiene at this time is very important, ladies and gentlemen. So body image or body satisfaction is an important component in the development of self-esteem. Now, what is the relationship between a physical self to our self-esteem? Later, we'll discuss on that. Finding of a study revealed that body image or satisfaction in both sexes is highly dependent on the body mass index, weight in relation to height, especially for college-aged population. This finding affirms that the general idea that weight controls behavior are common among college students. So we wanted to maintain that Coca-Cola body in bottle because that is what we think the ideal body shape, which is acceptable by the general population according to research. And if we fall short on that standard, we feel bad about ourselves. And sometimes when we are stressed, what we do, we usually eat more. Or if a person is so stressed, there are three things that he may practice. One is constant eating or no appetite in eating, or that person will just keep on sleeping, or others cannot sleep if the person is so stressed. Now, because our identity as a person, our body, the physical self, we don't have that, personal standard, but we have that, personal, we are influenced on what we have seen to the movie world or to the entertainment world. Now, as you can see in slide 13, in the I learned that there are that, ladies, they love their bodies despite the size. They love their bodies. And it's necessary that you need to also to love your bodies by way of taking good care of it, because according to the Bible, our body is the temple of God, and those who destroy the temple of God will also be responsible in the judgment day. So let's be careful what kind of food that we're going to eat and what kind of fluid that we're going to drink. That would be the basis of our life satisfaction that here at this very moment and later in life. Now, what is the relationship between physical self and the development of self-esteem? That is very important that we need to recognize. According to a study, self-esteem also referred to as a self-worth. How do you view and consider yourself will determine the quality of thought that you have. So self-esteem is also referred to as a self-worth. It is a global evaluation dimension of self. How you size up, how you see yourself. That is the way of measuring your self-esteem. So self-concept refers to domain-specific evaluation of the self, academic, athletic, physical appearance. So there is a difference between self-esteem and self-concept. You need to understand that. Because self-esteem, it refers to your self-evaluation about yourself, while self-concept refers to your ability, okay? It refers to the domain-specific evaluation of your capacity to perform something in academic, in sports, or in your physical appearance. While for Plotnik and Kuyong Dian, self-esteem is determined by how much we like ourselves and how much we value self-worth, importance, and attractiveness, and social competence. So self-concept is how you perceive your behavior, your abilities, and unique characteristics. For example, the question is, am I good, friend? So that is on the self-concept. You are evaluating your ability to perform something. So that's why I am a kind person. That's the question that it will be assessing your self-concept. So as part of overall self-concept, okay? Now, at its most basic, self-concept is a collection of beliefs one holds, okay, one holds about oneself and responses to others. It embodies the answer of the question, who am I? So the major component, or the major question that will measure your self-esteem and self-concept is, who am I? Okay, that is the basic question, existential question that you need to answer, and that your evaluation about yourself will determine who you are. And according to Rogers, there are 3 parts of self-concept. There are 3 parts of self-concept. Number 1 is the ideal self. When we say ideal self, in which partly we discussed last week, it's all about the person you wanted to be, or you want to be. And the other self-concept, according to Rogers, is self-image, how you see yourself, attributes, that your physical, personality traits, and social rules. And the third is what we call self-esteem, how much you like, accept, or value yourself, which can be impacted by several factors: how others see you, how you think you compare to others, and your role in the society. And and the development of self-esteem is greatly influenced by your childhood experiences. All right? Again, the development of self-esteem is actually prompted on influence by your childhood experiences. Now, if you go to the Path Ministry, there is a presentation there of the development of self-esteem in the first 18 months, according to Erickson. So I can post that that link in our group chat for you to understand how yourself is developed beginning at the first 18 months of your life. Okay. So self-concept is not always perfectly aligned with reality. We wanted to be taller, okay? Because our ideal, probably for gentlemen, the ideal, the perfect guy should be tall and good in basketball. That should be probably that is your self-concept about a perfect body. But in reality, your height is 5, and your favorite basketball player is 6 foot, or 5'7" or 5'11", but you are just 5 feet tall. So your self-concept is actually is not always perfectly aligned with the reality. The reality is you wanted to be a basketball player, and in order for you to become a good basketball player, if you want to be in an advantageous position of becoming a basketball player, height is the one quality factor that being considered. Since you are not that tall, because you already reached a maturity of the physical body, so your concept is not in align with the reality. All right? So if there is a mismatch between how you can see yourself, or your self-image, and who you were, your ideal self, your self-concept is in the state of incongruent. Okay? So when the self-concept or self-image and the ideal self is not in properly aligned, you are in the state, your self-concept is in the state of incongruent. Incongruency can negatively impact your self-esteem. Why? If your friends and classmates, their parents are rich and they are rich and you are poor, you wish that your parents also supposed to be rich so that you can buy the latest gadgets that your friends have or that your friends has or have. But since you are poor and you are coming from the mountain and you are deprived of such privilege, so you have that, you develop in yourself the what we call self-pity, because you think that you are deprived of such gadgets and you are deprived of the basic necessity, and it leads to develop of low self-esteem, and it impacted the way you behave, the way you act, and the way you think. So that's the impact. So Rogers' incongruence rooted, according to him, that incongruence or not aligning the ideal self-image and the ideal self, he termed it as incongruence, and it rooted in our childhood experiences. All right? And the key issue there during that incongruent period, because you cannot accept a certain part of yourself. Okay? There is that incongruent feeling of incongruent because your expectation and your ideal self-concept and your self-concept, your body image, your social status is not in conformity with your ideal self. So there is that what we call development. Either if it is aligned, then there is that proper development of self-esteem, and if it's not properly aligned, there is the development of low self-esteem. And the key factor there for you to overcome that situation is the level of acceptance. Sometimes it's very difficult for us to accept a certain part of our body. Say, for example, most of your friends, matangos yung ilong, and your nose is not that tangos. And sometimes you wish, how I wish my parents are, foreigner, American, European, so that I have that nose that I want. And so you cannot accept that nose, a certain portion of yourself, because early part of your life, you experience rejection. You experience rejection because your parents are too idealistic that they will say, we will recognize you as our child if you will become top in your classes. Diba? So we cannot accept a certain portion of ourself or our body because we are programmed that there is that rejection in the early part of our existence. All right? So you might say, how I wish my parents are rich so that I can have what others have. But don't you know that many rich parents don't have time with their children and tend to be more on dysfunctional family? So we experience, unconditional love. That's why that rejection will help us develop also not to accept a certain portion or body parts that we have. Okay? Now, the following are the criteria. So, in order for you to have that level of acceptance, your face must be beautiful and unpimpled. Your hair must be black and silky. Your skin colors must be fair and flawless. Your body must be slim and toned. So we are so particular of the body shape at this stage. That is normal and part of the development of self-esteem. However, this is a word of caution. However, if you cannot accept a certain portion of yourself, then that's the way of developing low self-esteem. So it's no wonder that adolescents appear to be quite conscious of their physical appearance, the way they look to others and to themselves. So these two aspects, the body image and self-esteem, are very important factors in the way adolescents cope with different development challenges during the adolescent stage. How do these two factors affect one another? According to research, level of self-esteem were positively influenced by level of body image. This suggests that if a person possesses high self-esteem, also follows that he or she would have high level of body image. Now, it's also apparent that physical appearance alone cannot be fully capture the essence of self and identity. Self-esteem does not seem to be solely dependent on body image, but on a multitude of other factors, particularly during the adolescent stage, when things can be quite overwhelming. In fact, it was found out that a positive relationship exists between spirituality and self-esteem among college freshman students. Now, for your future investigations, lead to more a global approach and understanding of physical self in relation to culture, body image, self-esteem, and standard of beauty. So traditional conceptions of physical appearance seem to be evolving, and these changes are welcome into this more culturally and racially sensitive generation. So while transitions are happening across the globe, support for initiatives and intervention that promote a healthy and holistic approach toward physical self should be espoused and disseminated for a balanced and psychologically sound human race. Now the question is this morning, ladies and gentlemen, is this: how do you see yourself today? How do you view or see yourself today? Are you considering yourself as a toy to be manipulated by someone? Or are you considering yourself as someone that could be manipulated and somebody will take advantage of your situation or your weaknesses? Or do you see yourself as someone who have purpose to improve the quality in living condition of the people around you? Or are you considering yourself as someone who has the ability to do for the common good? Or do you see yourself someone being created in the image of God, and God has given you a talent to alleviate the living condition of the suffering society? Or do you see yourself that you are someone, you are rare, unique, full of potential, and God has given you the mission to do that nobody else can do it except you? Or do you consider yourself, you are so particular of the physical appearance, but you are not so mindful of the inner self, which is the totality of the being? You know, friends, true beauty does not rely on the physical aspect, but true beauty is inside out. Your inner self that fulfills the mission and the purpose of your life, because you are someone who is unique, rare in the sight of God. According to Confucius, everything has beauty, but not everyone sees it. You are so beautiful. You are handsome. You are unique. You are special. You are rare. Because God has created you for a purpose and a mission. And your identity, your self-image, your self-concept should not be based on what you have seen in the entertainment world, but try to discover your potential, your talents, and use it to elevate the suffering world. And you can find true beauty, and you can find meaning in life, because you are doing your standard of self-image and body image is not on the world is offering, but based on the plan that God has given to each one of you. Let's go to another topic, the material economic self. Okay, let's try to see the material or economic self. There is a social disease that most of us are affected, and that social disease, we call it shopaholic. Okay, that is a shopaholic. What does it mean? It means that when we have money, we always spend it in Shopee, in Lazada. Shopaholic. Does it make sense?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Sometimes we cannot pay our tuition, but we have money to buy things in Shopee, in Lazada. So,
Important, guro sir mo.
huh?
More important than study.
Is everything you buy in Shopee are all important, or just to maintain your status before your friends?
I don't think so, sir.
Now let's try to understand this, because we are God's stewards, and we need to understand, being the stewards of God, what is our role. So what are the factors or situation that lead to a problem, to this problem? What are the effects of the problem about this, what we call material self? Okay. Now let's try to evaluate. As what I've said, people today are affected or infected by social disease. We call it shopaholic or materialism, a trait that can afflict both rich and poor, and which researcher defines as a value system that is preoccupied with possessions and social image. The project is both socially destructive and self-destructive. So always remember, friends, that if you want to maintain your social status, even though you don't have the capacity, you are actually destroying your social image and self. It is a self-destructive activity. Why? Because if you want to cope up the passion and the practices of your friends, the tendency is you will keep on borrowing money just to be just to be at pace with your friends. And sometimes you don't have the capacity to pay the borrowed money, then it's socially you can have that social sanction later on, and people will not believe you anymore when you borrow money because you are not paying, because you don't have that capacity. But the thing is, you want to portray or project yourself that you are that rich, but in reality you are not. So it smashes the happiness and peace of mind of those who succumb it. In other words, you cannot accept your the present reality. You cannot accept your present situation, and you wanted to be to be quick in doing things. You want to be, because millennials today are programmed to be always quick. So that's why we have that fast food chain. So we go to Bacolod, we go to the city, and it's a matter of few minutes, you can eat fried chicken because it's quick. Okay. Instant. We like instant noodles, instant coffee, instant food, instant boyfriend or girlfriend. You know, and we instantly die because we eat so much fast food, and that leads to fast die. So it is associated with anxiety. If you cannot accept your social status as of the moment, you are always in a state of anxiety, and you cannot focus on the things which are important. So there has been long a correlational observation between materialism, lack of empathy, and engagement with others, and happiness. So if you are a person who is so materialistic, there is, low level of empathy to others. And people who are so materialistic tend to be unhappy. In a series of studies published in the Journal of Motivation and Emotion show that as people become more materialistic, their well-being, good relationship, autonomy, sense of purpose, and rest diminishes. Materialism forces us into comparison with the position of others, a race both cruelly illustrated and crudely propelled by toxic website. There is no end to it. So if you have 4 Rolexes, while other has 5, you are a Rolex short of contentment. So sometimes, if our friends have, or if we have iPhone 6, and there is that iPhone 6s Plus, so we sell our old one and buy the new one because we wanted to have, updated gadget, so that our friends will not be at pace. We will always be at pace with our friends. We are not contented. So if your friends, have new dress, we also wanted to have one. And since we don't have the capacity, sometimes mangutang, hindi ka bayad. Awayo na lang ang utangan. Or sometimes we tend to steal others' money just to satisfy our desire to have the things. It is prompted by materialism. So there is a dreadful mistake we are making, allowing ourselves to believe that having more money and more stuff enhances our well-being. It's very important. We have that, distortive understanding that if we have more money, the more power that we have, the more popular that we have, the more that we will become happier. But it's not always the case. We are what we have and what we possess. A man's self becomes the sum total of all that he has. The possession becomes part of the extension of self. That's why we are reminded in the Bible in Luke chapter 12, verse 15, that says, "Then he said to them, watch out, be on your guard against all kinds of greed. Life does not consist in abundance of possession." That is the wisdom coming from the Lord. The New Living Translation says, "Then he said, beware, guard against every kind of greed. Life is not measured by how much you own, but how much you impart to others." Manila Times, to understand Filipino consumer business, should focus on 4 majors. So if you engage in a business based on research in the Philippines, these are the business that you need to engage in. Based on Manila Times, number 1, Beauty, so you need to sell more beauty products, enhancing, the physical self. It's very, very lucrative business. Hygiene, health, and convenience. So these are the key trends that would explain Filipinos' buying behavior. Stress lost Barra, Commercial Director of Consumer Knowledge and Insight firm. So this is the result of a study. Now, these are the things that you need to understand regarding your physical body, the self-concept and self-image, and what contributes to our self-concept and self-image are the family dynamics, or the childhood experiences, our peers, media, the entertainment world, and materialism. So if we base our self-image or self-concept on those things, we will become frustrated and we lose focus what is important. But if focus on the talent that God has given you, helping others, you will enjoy life at its best, ladies and gentlemen.